I sobbed so hard. I don't want to say that book took the spark of reading away from me because that seems really dramatic, but... Hi. In this week's video, I unfortunately have to reference the ugliest page in my reading journal, which is my series tracker page. I'm in the middle of 16 series at the moment. I'm gonna use this week's reading vlog as a way to catch up on some of those series. And those series are Powerless, Rose Hill, Windy City, Assistant to the Villain, Threads of Power, Vancouver Storm, Fae and Alchemy, Emily Wilde, Red Rising, Wicked Games, Villains, Beartown, Magnolia Parks, and A Study in Drowning. I'm in the middle of 13. How did I just say? Anyways, those are the ones that I'm in the middle of. And in this week's video, I hope to complete a trilogy, continue a trilogy. This is book 2 out of 3. And also just continue, what is it called if there's 4? Read book 3 out of 4. I have my little TBR for this week, and I'm really excited about some of these. Specifically this one, I recently picked up the second book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I read Done and Dusted, I think a couple years ago, but then randomly I decided to pick up the second one and I was like, okay, I actually need to read all of these immediately. Similarly, I just started Beartown. I think a couple videos ago I read Beartown and immediately was addicted to the way that Frederick Bachman writes, especially this story specifically, which I was really shocked by. So I'm super, super excited to get to this one. A series that I have many thoughts on and I'm really conflicted about, but I'll just leave it at that. You'll have to watch and find out. And I have so many thoughts. I listened to most of the progress that I've made so far, and while I was listening, I literally was writing down. I have notes about this. For some context, I loved Powerless. I thought it was so good. Did I think it was the best book in the world? No. But did I love the romance, love the setting, love the plot? Yeah, it was great. I thought it was so fun. I, however, hated the book Reckless. And I don't mean to be offensive if anyone takes that offensively. And that's like not hating on the author, I'm hating that book. Because I just don't think that book needed to exist. And that book kind of rooted some suspicion in me. So going into this book, my hopes were kind of already on the floor. What happens if I pick this up and it's like Powerless and I fall in love with the series again? A little part of me was like that, but the rest of me was like, I think this book might be just as bad as Reckless. So needless to say, I don't think I like this book. I liked the setting of Powerless so much more, and I know it's not good to like hold on to the first book in a series and you wished every single other book is exactly the first book because that's just not realistic. But I do miss the first book. I miss the setting and I miss the tension also between the characters, between specifically Peyton and Kai. I'll talk about that more in just a second though, because I want to say that I think that I'm noticing writing is not as good. Specifically in Reckless, I noticed that because everything was so repetitive, and I'm also kind of seeing that in this book, but I think probably the writing wasn't that great in Powerless, but I was able to overlook it because I loved the characters, the setting, the tension, the plot. I loved all of that so much, so I was able to overlook some of the writing that was not really the best. And then as the series goes on and I'm starting to like it less and less, I'm noticing more and more flaws in the writing. And like I said, I think that things are being repeated constantly in this book as they were in the second book. Specifically in this book, it's like you can't go 2 sentences without mentioning that Peyton is an ordinary. You can't go 2 sentences without Kai mentioning he's an enforcer. You can't go 2 sentences without talking about how Kit is the king and he reminds Peyton so much of his father, which kind of leads me back to the writing thing where it's like so much telling, not showing, which is such an issue with modern romantasy books these days, where it's like the writing, I don't want to speak too generally, but I think a lot of the writing in romantasy specifically does a lot of telling, not showing, because I want to be shown, not told. Especially on that topic about things being repeated all the time. Like, could we just have some variety? Like, yes, we know Peyton's an ordinary. She can say it a couple times, but you can tell the reader she's an ordinary without just saying because she's an ordinary all the time. I hope that made sense. But like, it's simply the same phrases being repeated over and over again. And I am the type of reader where I love a romance when it's like to build up the tension, the will they won't they kind of situation. As soon as the couple gets together though, I usually lose interest. And I'm not saying that there's any couple that's together in this book, but like when it's closer to them being together, I start to lose interest massively. Like I don't care anymore. I don't care what happens to actually any of them. So I was gonna start this clip being like, oh, I might DNF this book, which is a little bit laughable now because I think I'm 100% gonna DNF this book. Honestly, I set myself up for that. I despised the second book. I don't really know what I was expecting with this book to come back and save my feelings about the whole entire series. So I'm DNFing the first book of this video. I don't even know. I think I started with it because I had an inclination that I might not like it. So tomorrow I'm gonna dive directly into Us Against You by Frederick Bachman, which is the second Beartown book. And I'm so excited. I literally read Beartown not that long ago and I immediately was obsessed with the series and Frederick Bachman's writing, so I'm so excited to get to this one. At least I have hope for the rest of this video. Of Us Against You last night. I only got to page, I recorded it, I think it was like even less than 40. But I listened to a little bit this morning and a little bit today. I'm on page 76 now. I think DNFing Fearless like threw a wrench in my momentum of reading. Like I had started reading 3 books a video for at least the past couple videos, which I was like really impressed with myself about, but I don't know, like I like lost motivation to read because that book was so bad. That's bad. Not this book though, because this book is amazing. I'm obsessed with the way that Frederick Bachman is writing, or just writes in general, and this story. Oh, I meant to find this quote that's in it's in chapter 10. Obviously, I can't really tell you much about what's happening since it is a sequel, but I will say up until like around this point that I'm at, the book has kind of been the reader catching up with the characters and the repercussions of what happened at the end of the last book, or just what happened in the last book in general. Okay, I found a quote in this book that's talking about the story that I think encapsulates probably the entire series. Obviously, I don't know that for sure yet since I'm only on the second one, but definitely the first 2 books, where it says, inside every large story, there are always plenty of small ones. Oh, it's just one sentence. Okay. But like literally, that's how this story is written. And I think that's something that I really appreciate about the writing. Anyways, I'm loving this book just as much as I loved the first one. I just think I'm reading a little bit slower. I do feel like I kind of lost my... I don't want to say that book took the spark of reading away from me, because that seems really dramatic, but anyways, I just might be progressing through this book slower than I have been progressing through books in general recently. I'm first of all, I'm going to apologize about my hair. I've been at the pool, so like, I don't know, I'm jealous of anyone who can look cute after sitting in the sun and sweating. Anyways, here's a reading update for you. I started Lost and Lassoed because, as I just mentioned, I was at the pool and my copy of Us Against You is a library copy, and I feel like that's not right to bring a library book to the pool. I'm on page 119 in Lost and Lassoed. This is the 3rd book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I don't know if I've said that yet, but I read Done and Dusted a little bit ago. If I'm not mistaken, it was like 2 years ago when they were still on Kindle Unlimited. Yeah, I remember that. They took them off for some reason, which really frustrates me. However, I just picked up the 2nd book again not that long ago, and I gave it 4.5 stars. I thought that story was really cute, and so I knew whose book was next. So this is Gus. The main male character is Gus, which is Emmy from the first book's brother. I think oldest brother. And then Teddy is the main female character, and that's Emmy from the first book's best friend. So the first book was brother's best friend. So then this one I think is technically best friend's brother. So I knew that
Gus was a single dad, or not really a single dad. He still co-parents with his kid's mom. So it's not like single parent in the traditional way where it's just one person doing all of it. But I did not know that this was a nanny trope book, which, to be honest, I've realized after reading one of the Chestnut Springs books is nanny trope. I've read a couple nanny tropes in my time. And I don't think they're my favorite. I don't know. For some reason, that trope just doesn't hit for me. I didn't know that because I don't read the back of books. But, I mean, I'm going to finish it no matter what. This book is tiny. And I like the series as a whole. And I still like the characters a lot. I'm interested to see how the romance develops because they also are, like, kind of enemies. They don't love hanging out with each other, so it's like a little extra layer of interest there. So I'm curious to see how it pans out, even though it's not my favorite trope, and I'm just excited to get through this one to get to the last one because I've heard that one's really good. It just recently came out. But yeah, I have not read any further in Us Against You because, like I said, I kind of ran into a wall, like a reading wall, if that makes sense, because I lost so much momentum after DNFing Fearless. I don't want to just blame it on that book. A lot of stuff in my life has been happening too, so it's not just the book's fault. I'm also just busy and exhausted. So that's my update. I'm probably gonna go back to the pool after I eat lunch and keep reading. I hope to finish this today because it's a tiny book. I'll keep you updated on my thoughts. I finished Lost and Lassoed. I did in fact give it 2.5 stars though. So my update that I gave for this book, really the only one I did. I don't love the single dad nanny trope. And when I gave that update, I already kind of knew. I was like, this book is not hitting for me like the other ones have. And that has stayed the case the whole entire time. I found this one particularly tropey and stereotypical and like cheesy, like overly cheesy. And I don't know why. I think it was just because of Teddy, which is the main female character. Let me just say one thing. I am so sick of like the fiery redhead best friend character. Can we get a redhead that's like shy? I am so sick of that. I feel like I haven't even read that many. Like obviously Willa from Chestnut Springs. Now this one, I swear there's been more. I'm not just saying this based off of 2 books, but yeah, this one just wasn't really my favorite, which is okay. I'm not holding that against the whole entire series. I'm still really excited to get to the last one. I switched over to the audiobook of Us Against You. I'm 31% through chapter 15, and that is what I'm gonna continue doing for tonight. I'm gonna put the physical book aside, listen to the audiobook, and color. I haven't done this in forever. Actually, probably since I was when my boyfriend chose my books is the last time I listened to audiobooks in color. But earlier when I was listening to the Us Against You audiobook, I colored this one. Is that not so? These are so cute. My markers are not great, but I'm working with what I got. I'm about to do this beach scene. You know what? I'm jealous. I'm jealous. I want to go to the beach. I want this to be me, but like, especially this frog literally laying under a blanket of sand, listening to an audiobook, let's say. I want that to be me. Anyways. Sorry, I'm like giggling at this fucking coloring book. Like, I need help. But anyways, I'm gonna sit in my bed and do this and listen to my little audiobook, and I'm gonna enjoy my time.
Like all other teenagers, permanently on the boundary between hubris and the abyss.
I've gotten to page 286 in Us Against You by listening through the audiobook and coloring. I have been having a great time doing that, but something that drives me crazy about audiobooks is I read a lot faster than I listen. So I feel like this is taking me forever and I want to get through it. Also, I just think I like reading Frederick Bachman's writing better than I like listening to it. When you read it, there's a certain pace to it that I absorb it at.
And then when I'm listening, it's way more passively. I'm not feeling like the punch of his writing when I'm listening to it. So yeah, I want to switch back to the book. I'm not gonna give any updates until after I keep reading the book, because I do feel like listening to the audiobook and listening passively is kind of affecting my thoughts. So I'm gonna keep reading and then tell you how I feel. Braid, but you can't hardly see it. Not that it matters. I can look bald, it's fine. I'm on page 385 in Us Against You. I sobbed so hard last night. Oh my god. Oh my god. I have so much to say about Frederick Bachman in general. So like I'm not gonna say it right now, I'll save it to the end. But these characters are real people to me. I honestly can't explain it any other way because of how hard I was sobbing last night. Like ugly crying snot dripping down my face. I just need to know how the story ends. And also, I was 100% right about listening to the audiobook version of this versus reading it, because as soon as I started reading it, I don't know if, like, I want to say maybe, yeah, it did get sadder as soon as I started reading it, but also, like, I immediately became so much more emotionally invested once I started reading it. So I'm gonna finish this tonight, actually. I don't have too much left, and I hope I don't cry anymore. Side note, I'm afraid for some characters' lives in this book, which is so interesting. I don't think I've read like a general fiction book where I was like scared for characters' lives. That's usually only reserved for fantasy or like thriller / mystery, I think, right? I could be completely wrong. I don't know. However, this is a town about hockey. Why am I scared for people's lives? I don't think I can rate any book in this series under 5 stars at this point. I think I said this when I was talking about Beartown. Unfortunately, I cannot explain to you how impactful this book is unless you read it. You just won't get it unless you're reading it. But I just want to say my thoughts for his writing only getting better, because it's only just like proving how good at this he is. As for the story though, I think it's set up very interesting. I could say that the beginning is maybe a little bit slow because you're kind of catching up with all the characters and realizing the repercussions the last book happening to them, if that makes sense, where you're like seeing what happened to them because of how the last book ended, if that makes sense. I don't know. I guess I could say that means it's kind of slow, but like with all contemporary fiction, general fiction, literary fiction, whatever you want to call it, you're following people's lives. So it's not like it's gonna be having you on the edge of your seat or thrilling by any means, which, like, you know, I just want to restate, that's literally fine. That's what you're supposed to know going into these kinds of books. Although, back to my other point, I am afraid for some of these characters' lives, which is crazy because, like I said, it's just a general fiction book. Like, I also mean that in the way that, like, I think someone's going to murder someone else, not like someone's just gonna die because of other actions. Because that happens in this book. People die because of other people's actions, and that's equally heart-wrenching. But yeah, in the third book, I am afraid of murder. So there's that. I have a favorite character, I'll say. My favorite character is Benji, probably. He goes through so much and I just want him to be happy. I just want him to live his best, happiest life. I don't know if I'll see that in the next book, but you know, I really am hoping for him. And also in the first book, you see a lot of a character named Maya, and I love her story, but I am really intrigued with her little brother because we saw a lot more of her little brother in this book, and I want to see what happens. Well, I mean, not that I'm not interested in what happens to everyone, but there are specific people that I really want to know what happens to them in the end, especially the third book. So I am curious about Maya's little brother Leo. And then, oh, have you been able to see my laundry this whole time? Please pretend you didn't see that. Oh my gosh. I feel like I haven't spoken on this book, so I'm kind of just like brain dumping right now. But something else that I really like that Frederick Markman does is, like, towards the end of this book, we saw a glimpse of the future for some characters, like one character named Bobo. Yeah, I have a soft spot in my heart for him because he's just like a big softie and I want to give him a hug. But like, you saw a little bit of the glimpse into the future, but I'm like 90% sure that the third book isn't going to start with that little glimpse that we got. Like at that point, like we're still going to be following exactly after this book, but we know what happens to him in the future, and that makes me like really hopeful for him. So it's like a little bright moments in this book that could kind of be branded as a pretty dark book. Something else that's really interesting is the town, Bear Town itself, and like how that town has become a character within, or in addition to all of the sole characters that we follow. I really like the concept of how tough this town is and like how it's hard to survive there, so that it makes people there think that they're, you know, super tough just for living there, but also how that like makes people really bitter and mean towards each other. Even though they all live in the same town, they still have this sense of pride because of the hockey team, but like as soon as someone does something they don't like, they hate your guts. Like they will change their opinion about you in 1 second. And in this book, we saw a lot more politics than the first book, which is really funny because at the end of the first book and a lot through this second book, a statement that keeps being reiterated is hockey should not be involved in politics and that kind of thing. And this book is basically just an entire contradiction, like showing how much politics is in hockey, and also just the politics of the town and like the nearby town. So needless to say, loved this book. Will be picking up the third one fairly soon. I do think I don't want to continue the third one just yet because I want to like enjoy my time in the series and not be so rushed to get through all of them. Yeah, loved this book. I'm glad I loved a book in this video, considering the first one I started I DNF'd, and that I didn't really love the little cute cowboy romance book that I thought I was gonna love. So that was a little disappointing. I still suggest that book. I still suggest the Rebel Blue Ranch series as a whole. That particular book just wasn't my favorite. So yeah, I'm glad I did have a little 5-star moment in this video. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I will see you next week.